call the roll.
Councilmember Summer?
Present.
Councilmember Brockman? Here. Councilmember Ross? Here. Councilmember Tapia?
Here.
Councilmember Littler?
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Here.
Mayor Rotary?
Here. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the July 14th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those are approved. Our first item of scheduled business this evening is continuing our 2026 budget workshop. We will be discussing the library operating and 10-year capital proposal.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I am pleased to introduce Library Director Heidi Smith and the Board of Trustees Treasurer Rob Biederman. They are going to present information about the proposed library operating capital budget for fiscal year 26. First, I just wanted to walk through the timeline for our proposed budget. Budget planning is well underway. We actually start in the spring. We started in March putting together the schedule for fiscal year 26. We have a number of formal neighborhood meetings. This is an opportunity for the public to meet with the chief elected official and the chief administrative official from each government serving Highland Park. It's an opportunity for us to hear from them of priorities, projects, major initiatives that they'd like us to consider immediately or into the future. And then on an ongoing basis, really throughout the year, we are engaging with the public to obtain their feedback as we are working on our major project plan for the current year or the upcoming fiscal years. We held a workshop, a 5-hour workshop with the mayor and city council in May, and that meeting set forth the mission of for fiscal year 26 and our priorities. And then you can see the major overview of subject matters and the dates in which, when they are addressed at a budget workshop or city council meeting. So this evening, we continue with our budget workshop. Included in the packet is some preliminary information about the library budget. Director Smith and Treasurer Biederman will walk us through that, and then happy to entertain any questions this evening. Just in terms of next steps, the council will be getting the proposed budget. We are going to be meeting one-on-one with elected officials to answer your questions, and then we'll have the workshop as well as public hearings part of the budget process. With that, Director Smith.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Again, I'm Heidi Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Highland Park Public Library. We're a component unit of the City of Highland Park, and our 9-member appointed volunteer board sends their regards to the council along with their draft budget for 26. This is an outline of the agenda of what we'll cover this evening, myself and Rob. I'm going to start with the library strategic initiatives. This is year one of a 3-year bridge strategic plan, bridging us from the previous strategic plan through construction of our expanded building into the future. In 2027, we anticipate creating an updated strategic plan. These 3 years, we will be focusing on the construction and making sure that we optimize use during construction so that community members continue to be able to benefit from the advantages of using the library even during construction. We're going to continue to improve accessibility, not only physically, but also with our website and digital technology accessibility being increased and improved. We're also fundraising with a $1 million goal to support the construction project, and we're calling it the Reimagine Your Library campaign. This is the organizational chart of the library with the Board of Trustees and our 501c3 separate organization that also fundraises on behalf of the library, the Friends of the Highland Park Public Library. 2025 to date has seen a lot of activity around construction, but we've continued to offer programs and special programs to the community. We've continued to seek out grant funding as well as fundraising for private dollars, and we've continued our intergovernmental cooperation with special events and programming. Our objectives as outlined for 2026 include completing additional work, the strategic initiatives that I mentioned earlier. Completing the expansion project should be complete by fall of 2026. We'll continue to manage an appropriate budget and pursue grants and gifts to support library services. We're going to identify cost-effective goods and services ongoing and continue to enrich the community with library services. I'm going to turn this over to Treasurer Rob Biederman. And I figured out the quickie right there. That's to next, and that's to go down here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The budget, this summary that is there is a summary of your Exhibit A in your agenda packet. And I just want to highlight various items of it. As you know, the budget has three major components: the revenue, operating expenses, and capital and debt expenses. In the revenue, the Board of Trustees is requesting for 2026 a levy increase of 9.5%, as shown there, which would yield a amount of $558,000. Now, the basis for that, I think I'll go through that. In the operating expenses, we are budgeting for 2026 an increase of 10.7% of $566,000. Now, the largest item in our operating expense is personnel costs. It's about 75% of our operating costs. And of the personnel costs, the largest component of that are salaries. And our 2026 budget has an 8% increase that is attributable to two principal factors. The first one is related to the expansion of which you're all aware. We are planning to hire two new associates by mid-year. One for the youth area, which is being expanded, and the other is a media associate for the makerspace or innovation studio, which is going to be completely new in the space. And that was actually at the meeting last year. Those two positions were disclosed and mentioned that those were going to be hired in 2026. The second largest component of personnel costs are healthcare costs. And we projected that is going to increase 32% for 2026. There are three basic factors for the increase of that. The first one that I've already mentioned are the two new hires. They're going to get health insurance, and so, of course, that's going to be included. A second factor for that is that we experienced in 2025, 7 of the employees opted to go from single coverage to family coverage, which is about $2,000 a month more for each employee. So that's going to be considerable. That's a reason for the entire year then in 2026 for an increase. And the third is we've projected a 5% increase in premiums. That's the estimate we have. And collectively, that results in about indicated a 32% increase of premiums. The third third component of personnel is the retirement fund, the IMRF. Now that is beyond our control. That is where we are told what the new rate's going to be in 2026, and that is an increase of about 24% for the employees. So collectively, all these budgeted expenses we have for 2026, as I indicated, many of which are attributable to the expansion, results in an 11.4% increase in the part of the budget, which is by far the predominant part. The second largest category for the budget is, as you can see, there is the books, AV, and electronic, which we have an increase 8.2%. That is, we need to keep up with our peers, and we have fallen behind for the collection. The Illinois Library Standards uses a metric that it should be at least 12% of our operating expenses, which it falls in line with that. It's actually a little below that, what we budgeted for 2026. And the third category I want to mention, which is the third largest component of our operating expenses, is the one for maintenance. And in the maintenance, the largest category is building. And that is the increase we projected there, or we budgeted there, of 32%, is directly attributable to the expansion space. We're adding 7,850 square feet. That is clearly going to increase the maintenance needs for that area. So all total, the budget for operating expenses shows a 10.7% increase, $566,000, and that is a basis for requesting the 9.5% increase in the levy of $558,000. Now, one thing I want to mention is the third category of the budget, which is in the bottom part, which are the capital expenses, and just want to note one particular item, is that our special reserve fund, which, as you know, is used to fund our capital expenses, is going to be generally depleted. We've built it up to $4.6 million, about $4.6 million, but it's needed for the entire expansion of about over $10 million. We need to replenish that fund, and that kind of segues into the next part of the presentation I want to make on the capital improvement plan, because that's funded in large part by the special reserve, which we need to replenish. I'd stop here. If you have any questions of the budget, I'll be happy to answer them at this point.
Councilmember Center and then Tapia.
Thank you so much for the detailed explanations. Just a few questions for you, if you don't mind. On the insurance piece relative to the headcount, the salaries, is it commonplace to cover 100% of those healthcare costs for all family members, relative to the market, or is that like a policy decision to
I know we follow the city plan, but
It's under the
Heidi, I think,
city-
can
the
best
city
respond to
plan.
that.
So I don't know if you want to hear from finance within the city, or Ida, if you want to answer that.
Actually, Assistant Manager Todd can answer.
versus it being subsidized or some cap for
It is
the,
a percentage across the cost of all plans. It's not covering 100% of the family plan. It's a percentage cost share
yeah.
between individuals and across, whether it's individual, single plus one, or family coverage, we cover a certain percentage of those costs. So it is split across all those.
But obviously that, the number of people who opted for the increased coverage, to your point, is contributing to the outsized increase in the insurance cost relative to that payroll line.
Right.
Okay. On the revenue side, interest income projection down 53% in a pretty high interest rate environment. Just curious why that.
I'm sorry, for which one?
On the revenue side, right? We've got
Oh, the
investment. I misspoke. I apologize. The investment income line is projected to be down about 53%.
I can explain that,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, our investment income is, of course, function of how much principal we have to earn interest on. It's currently, we have, very recently, the bond, over $4 million in the special reserve.
Yep.
Those are going to be decreasing, throughout 2026, the principal amount is going to be used and spent on the expansion, and that will then proportionately reduce the investment income, which is based on interest on that principal amount.
Makes sense. Okay. The $1 million that you're seeking to raise kind of privately outside this budget, right, and outside of the tax levy, what's the use of that, or the intended use of that? And is it possible to allocate any of that to maybe offset or eliminate the need for the increased tax levy and therefore the impact to the residents from a property tax perspective?
Very good question. Now, some of that is shown here, some of the other sources of income on here, such as the state corporate replacement tax, fines, fees. Some of this comes from the city, and the per capita payment. We've built that, hopefully, into that, showing how those funds are used, because we have not only increased operating expenses, but we need to replenish our special reserve fund, as we'll go into for purposes of the our future capital improvements outside of the expansion that need to be made in 2026 and the future ones. So those monies are used as well for that very purpose. So if we really, it's hard to allocate it then. I mean, money is fungible.
Sure.
But I think when you look at this as a whole, our budgetary needs for both operating expenses, capital needs, and collectively with both the levy and other sources of income, we hope to satisfy all those needs.
I'm only asking from the perspective of, like, as we're seeing things and we know that costs are increasing across the board and there's gonna be inevitably a potential impact, downstream to our residents, right? Is there any opportunity to rebucket the additional potential revenues that are coming in to not require the extent of the tax levy that's proposed?
May I add a comment?
Sure, of course.
Thank you, Rob. So the capital campaign directly funds the expansion. They're restricted gifts for that intended use.
Got it.
And when you ask, could it be relief for our taxpayers? In the long run, yes. What we would anticipate is if we're very successful with that campaign, then we will not fully deplete our reserve to zero. We would then be able to, in future years, potentially not work so hard to replenish what's already been replenished.
Yeah.
But because it's early days, we thought it was much better to be prudent. Does that
Yes.
jive with you? Great.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Andres?
Yes, I'm looking at the reduction in training, and I recognize you gotta do trade-offs, especially in a big capital campaign kind of a year. But, there's been a lot of good upgrade of your staff's capabilities over the last couple of years. What is it that they're not gonna get in terms of training? Have you had to sacrifice, if you will, or postpone? And how are you managing your staff's maybe rising expectations about increasing their capabilities?
So if I had multiple years up there to discuss with you, I could point out, well, I guess I can, with 2024, that we spent $24,000 on staff training. And the reason for the increase in 2025 is that we have conducted a special contract for both staff training and review of our emergency procedures and documentation. And so that since the two went hand in hand and it was one contract, that was where we budgeted the funds. So the special training, we've had one so far this year that the staff have received, has been about our emergency procedures and best practices in responding to an emergency. So that training will not be repeated next year. So department budgets for training would be static. They would not be negatively impacted. And then it's possible in future years, when it's time to do another update, we may come back and look at increasing that line for that year.
And I just had a follow-up, it's been on a separate issue. I saw that one of your priorities is to make things even more accessible. And how much have you looked, does that include addressing sensory issues, in terms of light and sound?
The first thing we're starting with is our website and making sure that it's fully ADA accessible. So that's where we're focusing the primary effort in these first few years. That is something that a lot of libraries have been discussing about ways to better serve, whether it's early hours with low sound, low lights. It's something that we're exploring, but not yet pursuing in earnest.
Annette, and then Yuli.
I just had a question.
I think there's a couple more questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I apologize.
thank you.
I apologize for that.
I just-
No, no,
Go
we're
back.
good.
I had a question about personnel and salaries. I don't know what the increases are this year, but I was wondering if they're based on what we do in the city, because we're talking about different performance, because we had some large increases this year. And then secondarily, how that compares in the field in general, in terms of increases.
Would you like me to?
Because it
Thank you,
is-
Rob. Sure. Gita had mentioned that budgeting starts in the spring. One of the first things I do is reach out to city administration and say, what are you using for your non-union salary increases so that we can be in alignment with the city? So that's one thing that we do. So we have included a 6% across the board increase for non-union staff. We want to be in alignment with the city and their non-union approach. So if anything changes, we will further discuss with the board.
Well, is that a mandate by the city, or is that, that's just a desire?
Policy, that's best practice.
Okay, that's the question. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the second question, please remind me, because I don't
How
always.
how does that increase compare with outside of Highland Park?
Right, with other libraries.
Yeah.
So we work with HR Source. It's a third-party HR and surveying outfit. And every year they complete a survey, which we just received the results from 2024.
Okay, that's good.
We got it in June, right? So they're about 6 months behind. And unfortunately, this is the first year that they did not recommend a specific factor for an increase. So I have a question into them to see if they're going to do that. They typically put it out with the survey in June and again in November based on actuals. So I do not have the most current up to date. I can tell you that the 2023 data was 2.65%, which, you know, after almost 2 years is pretty outdated. So those are our two data points we have at this moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Yumi?
Thank you. I was wondering if there's any portion, for example, cleaning services, just as one example, that you contract out that might be less expensive to contract out than to have staff? We're just sort of curious about that. Are there any services that you contract out because it's less expensive to do that rather than to pay, insurance and all of those pieces?
Absolutely. You'll help me if I forget anything, please. Our HR services are outsourced. Our accounting services are outsourced. Our cleaning services are outsourced.
Landscaping, I believe.
Landscaping is outsourced, thank you. Oh, yes, legal is outsourced. Thank you. This is a team effort. I apologize, I don't have that in front of me, but we do typically look at outsourcing first, right? And we did. We don't currently outsource our IT. We have a department of one that has been absolutely fantastic for the library. So we've continued to have that on-site full-time support. Anything you add?
That's,
And also the full chart of employees and their salaries and whatnot, that is in the city budget. I just can't remember where
We can provide
You
it to
can
you.
provide-
Yeah, we don't provide
that.
the
it-
full
just
detail
sort
of every single position, but by,
There's 77.
by title, yeah, and the ranges.
Be sort of interesting to see that.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll let you continue. Thank you.
The next slide is our capital improvement plan. As you may know, this is based on an assessment made in 2021 of the needs for the facility to make sure our infrastructure is adequate, obviously more than adequate for the patrons. We plan to update this in 2026, 2027. And what this shows is over a 10-year period, we're planning about $5 million of additional capital improvement. That compares to what occurred in the 10 years prior to this. Now, that's excluding 2025, where we have, of course, the major expansion. But before that, we had about, in that period from 2016, I believe, to 2024, approximately $5 million as well in capital improvements to maintain the facility. You know, as I indicated before, this is the funding of this is a combination of the special reserve fund and allocation of the tax levy to this. I'll just open if you have any questions about this, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions on the capital improvement plan? John?
The top line, library expansion
Oh,
renovation, so what's in there?
Okay.
Sorry.
Great question.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's a mistake, actually. If you
Okay.
look at your Exhibit A, it should be computerization.
Yeah, I got it.
That was just there was a mistake on the PowerPoint, but it's computerization.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, so this is outlining our expansion priorities, the big five, as we sometimes refer to them, the improvements we're making with the expansion. Our physical accessibility, we're adding on to our youth services. For historical preservation, we're expanding and improving our archive space. Our meeting spaces are going to be larger, more flexible. We're going to have a creative workshop or maker space opening soon as we can, with cutting edge equipment and direct support from staff. We did include some of the costs under each bullet, that staffing and operational costs that Rob went through earlier. And then this is, in broad strokes, the funding plan for the expansion, the $10.065 million project. We are funding with, I'll start at the bottom and work myself up to the top. $4 million in bond proceeds that the city has issued on behalf of the library. The fundraising and grants that we are seeking that hopefully will put us in a better position moving forward, and for our community and funding future capital needs. Library special reserves, $4.19 million, and funds from both tax levy, both years from our operations. We typically budget $375,000 for capital, so we're using that for this project as well.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Sure. Just a clarification, I had thought it was like a $6 million project, but is that because you're taking from the reserves, your 4? Is that how you're getting to your 10?
So when you add all of these up, they equal the 10.065, and they retain about $1 million in the special reserve should we be successful with that $1 million campaign.
Okay, so the reserve is what's covering, and that's the distinction, because I went in like looking at that $10 million, I'm like, oh my God, because I thought it was 6, but that's why.
Well, and the story with the expansion project, we started at 5, and then we landed on 7. And then when the project went out to bid, we were very concerned about how bids were coming in across various public projects that our architect was telling us about. And ours came in much higher than expected. We're very pleased to be able to still realize the benefits to the community with this project. Does anyone have any other questions for me?
Yep, Andres?
Yeah, I know that you went through a process also of scaling back because of the budget issues. Can you just remind us what is it that, we had to unfortunately put aside for another time?
The good news is nothing. We were able to do all of it that's functional. The only aesthetic things that were tabled was like flooring, paint, and furniture for the lobby, and flooring, paint, and furniture for the teen space. Those spaces will be able to function, and so those were the 2 that were tabled, set aside, but all of the other 5 key goals will be met in full, which is amazing.
It absolutely is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, onward. Okay.
I don't mean to rush you, I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
Clicking it quickly. Anything else about the expansion project? I won't read you our projected fund balances, but they are here for your review. Again, we're looking at our fundraising campaign to support us to end the project fully expended and also in the best possible financial situation for the library and community moving forward. Oh, which I'm remiss. Second to the bottom there, we've received $38,000 in gifts to date with an additional 410, ooh, that's a typo, wouldn't that be amazing? No, it's not a typo. .410 million. Ooh, I'm excited, $410,000 pledged. So we're almost halfway to our goal, which is amazing. Okay, those fund balances again. And I think the next slide just says questions, so I'll leave this up.
First of all, thank you for this presentation. Just a quick question, when you talked about the fundraising, is that just through emails and letters to the community, or how is that, how are you going so far with, in terms of the fundraising?
Okay, so we sent out a mailing to all of the addresses in Highland Park. We've included it in the Highlander, our campaign, Reimagine Your Library, as well as in our e-newsletters. It's on our website, it's in posters in the library. And we've also reached out to previous donors. And we are just thrilled that let's call it the foundational gift or pledge, was made by the Alvin H. Baum Family Fund, a longtime donor to the library. We're just thrilled about it.
Oh, that's great. Have you reached out to schools, the school district, or are they?
We haven't.
Is that?
I would love any ideas that you would
Yeah,
like to share with me.
With school starting up again?
At any time.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
I'll reach out if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marissa.
Yeah.
John?
The near 500,000 that's been pledged/collected to date, that is not yet factored into the revenues in your budget, correct?
In the 26 budget?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Part two to that
Yes.
is kind of circling back to what I asked about before and what Rob explained around sort of the lack of principal generating investment income. We should be able to model out an increase in investment income, small piece, on that 500,000 and reduce the increase in the property tax levy that is required.
I think what is concerning to us at this time is timing. We have pledges and we're working on contracts for naming opportunities. We do not yet have signed contracts. So as of today with this budget presentation, I have no doubt in our donors that they will see it through. But again, it felt most prudent to say this is pledged, not yet received as revenue. It is possible that as those funds are received, that the forecast about investment income can be updated, as well as our outlook for our multi-year plan to restore the special reserve to an estimated $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Annette?
So I think we're all trying to spend the money that's been pledged that you don't have yet, but I do have a question along those lines too, and that is, I'm so impressed that you're able to do everything you want to do except for the flooring and so it'll be usable, but at some point you are going to want to do that.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, where's that money coming from?
So we have that in 2031.
Oh my God. That's
With-
so sad. Sorry.
It'll be here before you know it. We'll finish this project and have a few years to plan the next one. The interior renovation we have itemized in 2031 for $1.5 million is an update to the rest of the library. A lot of it will be flooring, furniture, finishes. Some of it will be shelving, which is steel and expensive for the adult shelving. Again, as needed, it's not designed, it's not planned. This is our estimate based on what we're seeing at this point. As we continue to get closer, that number will get sharper, hopefully better, again, with our continued fundraising.
Thank you.
Great.
Well, related to that,
Sure.
I mean, without putting too much of a burden on you, since you want to do continued fundraising, is there sort of a possibility to see if you can move that date? narrow the date? to anything?
Perhaps,
And-
perhaps. I think that's an excellent question. The board will have to discuss
Yes.
that. Yeah, we are so fortunate with the support we're receiving from the community and our previous donors.
Yeah. Because what we've learned in capital projects is once you have a big push like you're gonna have now, is actually, you kind of gain some momentum to the next thing. People start getting excited, they're like, oh, wow, look at this, and you wanna ride that wave a little bit, where people kind of have their checkbooks opened a little bit, so just stop.
Sounds like I should put you in my list of call too.
Feel free.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think the last slide just says questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our next item was brought to us by Francine Ephraim and Annette and others in like 2021, I believe. And we had a conversation about this during our retreat in May, is that, and didn't have enough time to give it the time and conversation that it needed to have. So I appreciate everybody's patience, and we will now proceed at Committee of the Whole. Okay, just take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to just recognize Councilmember Littwer, who did raise this issue most recently at our spring workshop. Since then, we did receive information. Mayor Rodering met with our staff, which includes Assistant Manager Emily Taub and our Corporation Counsel Steve Alrod and Hart Passman. We reviewed the information that has been collected and then presented to you this evening. So we've got a detailed staff report that just gives highlights of what has been researched and evaluated. We have a presentation scheduled this evening that Emily will walk through, and then we have, based on one-on-one conversations with each of you, we do have an ordinance that we have prepared that is on the City Council agenda for formal considerations. There are a couple of changes that we will highlight, so if you're comfortable, that ordinance is recommended to be approved as amended, but we'll go through kind of background and next steps.
Good evening. So the policy consideration in front of you tonight is twofold. First, to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism by ordinance, and then to also direct the city manager to include the working definition of anti-Semitism into the city's employment manuals. This is the recommended definition. This was put together again by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and I'll let you read through that. If the council elects to move forward with the ordinance this evening that was included in the packet, there are several recommended amendments to that ordinance, so that would be as amended, and it would include an updated second whereas clause to include the language noted on the slide, specifically calling out the incidents and increase in hate crimes and other incidents motivated by bigotry throughout the Chicago area. To add the contemporary examples to the adoption ordinance. So this would include the several IHRA examples that have been developed to both identify and explain anti-Semitism, to aid in understanding of anti-Semitism through those contemporary examples. This would add that to the ordinance. The date was also updated, and just a clarification that when the ordinance used IHRA, what it refers to, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. So those would be the recommended amendments to the ordinance. So again, why are we looking at this now and what's been researched? This discussion started in 2021, many years ago, about both the city's policy, mission, and values, and the city elected at that time to move forward with a statement against hate, and now we're looking at a more specific, addressing the concerns against anti-Semitism specifically. So we'd be looking at what's been done. Over 1,200 organizations have adopted the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, with 120 of those being in the United States, and 5 of those municipalities being in Illinois. And these are the 5 in Illinois that have adopted the definition.
And 37 states. Sorry.
And Corporation Counsel has conducted extensive legal review into both the items that were brought forward and has worked with lawyers and representatives of the following four organizations: the Anti-Defamation League, Stand With Us, American Jewish Federation, the Jewish Committee, and the Jewish Federation, to understand what the different options are ahead of us and how we can best implement this within the city. If adopted, we would move forward with communication and education. That would include extensive communication on the website about the definition of anti-Semitism and examples of that, as well as extensive community education, which the city is already a leader in. Earlier this year, there was a workshop in conjunction with the Department of Justice to understand how to work with and best communicate with the Jewish community. The Anti-Defamation League has brought in training to the city to work with city employees as well as others. So it's already something the city's been committed to and been extensively doing, but we would take that even a step further. And then we would also have further education with the city employees as far as what anti-Semitism means and how we can educate others. And what would be the scope of this ordinance? What would it cover? The policy changes cover city employees. So it would cover all city employees that would be directed to understand the definition of anti-Semitism, and that it would be something that city employees would have to abide by. There'd be education community-wide. As far as understanding or impacting our city's purchasing policies, it doesn't directly impact them, but our purchasing policies remain consistent with our already direct language from the purchasing manual right now is that we are to work with organizations with high ethical standards, and that would continue through as we move forward. So again, what we're looking at tonight is your direction on whether to adopt the IHA working definition of anti-Semitism by ordinance and to include it into the policy manuals of the city.
Thank you. So I'd like to just add one request as we consider this. And part of where this all came up, as you know, but this is for those who weren't at the retreat, is we go through the city's statement against hate, we go through our values statement, we go through our mission, we really dig deep and make sure that these are still consistent with what this council stands for. And what we recognized was with the increase in anti-Semitism, there's been plenty that the city has already been doing in terms of working with the Department of Justice, CRS. We had a group of representatives from the school district, the park district, the fire department, the police department, other communities come in and learn from these representatives of the U.S. Department of Justice to better understand how to engage and how to understand working within a Jewish community and working with the Jewish community. But we recognized also during our conversation at the retreat that there are others who are also having discrimination just go through the roof. And so my request to this group is, while we will be looking at this question tonight at the city council meeting, can we also ask the Human Relations Advisory Group to take a look at our statement against hate and to take a look at our value statements, since that's sort of the core of where those items came from, and give us feedback as to whether there are other aspects that we need to be addressing, or if they're sufficient in terms of representing our values, representing our commitment to inclusion, our concern about the intolerance that's been growing. So that's one thing that I also wanted us to talk about during the committee of the whole. Andres? And then
Yeah,
Um,
as the only non-Jewish person in the council, this has been a very interesting journey for me, very educational, and recognizing that within the Jewish community, there's not much of necessarily agreement on some things. It's kind of the nature of the culture, and I've really come
We love to argue.
Yeah, and I love that, right? But I was trying to find, especially in my diversity inclusion work, you tend to find sort of a center of the curve, the bell curve, right, of a particular community's preferences, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of look for it because it kind of gives you at least where the norm is. So I found where there's some congruence, but also there's quite a bit of variance. So that's been an interesting thing for me to navigate. But along the way, I had a chance to really, learn more and all the nuances and things like that. Obviously from a due diligence perspective, like we all do, we raise all kinds of questions, and a lot of the things ticked off. I go, okay, I get that, I understand that, this and that, the other. There were two that I particularly wanted to spend more time thinking through philosophically and policy-wise, particularly in the context of, what is best practices on diversity, equity, inclusion. And some of the objections or concerns that I heard was, well, why, and you alluded to this in your comments just now, Mayor, is that, well, why does this particular community have something additional on top of all the other statements that we have? And that's a legitimate question, right? And in fact, you're saying, well, maybe we should be looking at other needs that are there. And the way I found my way through a place of getting very comfortable and very endorsing of this is not only the statistics of the rise of anti-Semitism, et cetera, but, you know, we're seeing other forms of discrimination happening. But learning that anti-Semitism has its own unique matices, we say in Spanish, kind of its, call it nuances or elements or threads, right, that are really unique, right, to the Jewish community that don't exist in the same way or the same history. So there is a concept in diversity, equity, inclusion that there's a fallacy that equity means everyone should be treated the same. That equality does not mean, you know, that equity does not mean equality, meaning that to achieve equity for different communities may require different interventions. So what the Jewish community needs in the particular ways in which it feels threatened have some nuanced differences that maybe other communities don't experience, but those other communities feel threatened or vulnerable in other ways. And I think behind your request for HRAG to look at this, I think that's the work, right? It's for the Latino community or for the Eastern European refugee and immigrant community in Highland Park, the LGBTQ community, et cetera. You know, what are the particular needs that they have, the matices that they face that maybe the Jewish community doesn't face in the same way.
Those nuances.
In those nuances, right? So I see that this is about not only big issues about anti-Semitism, but there's nuances in how anti-Semitism is expressed, that this is a way to sort of get to those nuances in a way that the broader value statement against hate don't address. We kind of set the pillars to address it, but now we have to sort of follow the thread. So learning about the nuances has been very educational for me, and then I can see how that would then, if we implement it as a policy, then it can cascade through staff training and resident education and visitor education and police actions and things like that. So I can see how addressing the nuances, as in this ordinance, would be really helpful. The second thing that kind of emerged for me as a policy philosophy is, you know, why should we, you know, sure there's 5 cities, sure there's 34 some states, but why Highland Park? You know, why put this on our radar to really take us seriously as we are? And I think there's a place that is very important that we have to take into account the particular demographics of a community. That we want every resident, no matter if they're you know, a member of one into the represented community, there's still something about a meaningful representation of a community. So if the Jewish population is only about 2% of the United States, but whatever, 1/3 or more of the city, then there comes an extra, I think, responsibility for us as city council to take extra attention to the needs of a community that is so represented here, not only for the care of the citizens and residents and visitors, because there's, you know, people come for synagogue from all over, but I think there is a place for us to be a leader because we have such a heavy Jewish population. Why not kind of go ahead on something that is so important to the significant, you know, 1/3 of our population? And I think that logic also applies to the Latino community because there's a significant percentage here, and then we can talk about other things. And so I think we have a responsibility that other communities don't have of equal weight to lead on, because they may not have this kind of population representation, but it makes sense for a city like us to take the lead and therefore create a wake, if you will, for other communities that may not have the same percentage of Jewish population. They still have Jewish population wherever it might be, to say, look, there's Highland Park, they're 1/3 of the population, this is what the statement they make, this is what they're saying is required from all communities. So that's the second major reason why I think this is a very important thing for us to take the lead on.
Great, thank you. Annette?
So I, first of all, want to thank everybody here on the council for bringing this forward because, you know, it has been several years and we finally decided we were going to do this and we did it. I want to thank staff for the research that's been done on this. And that includes our legal team and everything else. And I want to say that really, I received a lot of support when I got this assignment, really, if I was going to follow up on it. From
Where did you get an assignment?
No, I mean, when we met as a group.
Oh, okay.
To follow
Oh,
up
when we
on
said,
it.
we gave you homework, that's right.
And
You
you gave
said,
me
come
homework.
back
You
with the
said, go ahead and
definition.
draft something,
I'm
see
like,
what
where
you
did we
think
give you an
about it."
assignment? Yeah.
No, but seriously, I got a lot of support from Jewish organizations in Chicago in general. And I, whether that's legal support or statistics, the Anti-Defamation League was really helpful in getting us numbers. Stand With Us was helpful in getting us numbers and complementary ordinances, so we could compare resolutions, ordinances, all sorts of types of law, and that was really a good step too. In many ways, and I really concur with what Andre said, perhaps for slightly different reasons, but Highland Park has always been a leader. We have consistently said, hey, he has no home here. We have really, walked the walk, talked the talk, and this is really the crowning piece on it. And the reason for that is because this is the time when, based on the statistics of what's going on in this country, and we are reacting to something in which we can then be leaders in other communities. And I really hope that in the same way as people look to us for our legislation on gun control, and we really were a leader on that in this state, and especially because the state of Illinois is not like one of those other 37 that has adopted this. By Highland Park doing it, I'm hoping other communities follow suit. And this is really about educating people. And if you don't know it, if you've never come in contact with something, if you make a statement in a very simple way, not meaning to hurt somebody, but then realizing that in effect you are, those are the kinds of things that we don't know. And it's a form of bigotry that is hard to put your finger on, and so I'm very grateful to you all for recognizing the collective knowledge that the Illinois Holocaust Remembrance Alliance brought together.
International.
International, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm so focused on Illinois. Thank you, Deans. Thank you, Mayor. It's really important for us to be a leader in this, and I'm grateful to you all for looking at this seriously and researching it and then adopting it so that we can do that for the rest of this state, as far as I'm concerned.
Great, thank you. Tony?
Thank you. Andres, I think you touched on an issue that I've had previously, which is one, why, as a Jewish person, of course I want to see a statement on anti-Semitism, but I have to ask, why do we have a separate statement on anti-Semitism when we already have a broad statement against all forms of hate? But for me, that's largely been answered for the same reason. It has been conflated by the federal government to be used in a way that is essentially weaponizing the term anti-Semitism for something that it is not. And we finally have a definition of that I think is sufficiently encompassing to address within the Jewish community as well as outside of the Jewish community the complexity of being religiously Jewish, culturally Jewish, possibly Israeli, having issues with the current government of Israel, and this statement for me finds an appropriate opportunity for that, and the idea that the Human Relations Advisory Group will examine whether other individual groups in Highland Park and the country should also be addressed separately from the broad statement against hate. You mentioned some of them. So for that reason, I'm very comfortable with this.
Great, thank you. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciative of your comments around HRAC's next steps. I think that is a very sensible thing to do. And that, for Councilmember Little, we're so appreciative of you championing this. I know how, what this means to you. It means a lot to me as well as part of the Jewish community. I think I very much echo the sentiments that you shared, that Councilmember Tapia and Councilmember Berger shared around our ability to be leaders, not only as representatives of our community, but as an impetus hopefully for others to follow. And so I think it's such a huge statement for us to be able to make, and I'm really proud to be part of the group to help support that. So thank you for your efforts to make this happen. I do have just one more practical question. I know it was covered a little bit, you know, in terms of kind of the policy. But what does it really mean in terms of, I'm gonna use terms like enforcement, or we talk about purchasing a little, and that maybe it doesn't actually mean change anything on paper. Just trying to understand sort of how that influences our ability to take action.
Try to hear me. Well, I think as it pertains to our employees, so in terms of our next step, we'll update the personnel manual and make sure that all employees understand the working definition. And in that respect, it's a policy that should be adhered to. So if there is anything that takes place, just like any form of discrimination, for example, we'll address it as a, you know, from a supervisory perspective. We will share information to contractors that work on behalf of the city as well. Now, if there is something that we identify as a violation, there's no real penalty provision. It's just something that we know that it's just like them not doing good work. We take that into consideration if there's a future, you know, opportunity or lack of opportunity to work with them.
Okay.
So that would be, and then, you know, we'll certainly share the information with the general public, which is very important. You know, our hope is that other businesses and organizations will follow suit as well. But we talked about it at length in terms of the enforcement. So there's not really a provision where if there is a violation, the city is going to take some formal action. You know, it's just something that we reinforce to say, here's what we stand for. And for businesses, we share our statement against hate when things happen, and here's, you know, here are our values.
I think it's important to note, this is aspirational. This is what we're aiming to be. And I think, first of all, thank you to our employees who are absolutely not doing any of this, right? I mean, it's sort of a belt and suspenders approach because we've been fortunate to have incredible people working for us in the community. But I think it's important, you know, obviously we still adhere to the First Amendment and recognize what free speech is and what people's rights are under that First Amendment, and that at times there are things that people can say that are horrific. And, you know, as much as people have said to me, you know, you need to stop that guy. Well, you can't stop that guy because we still live in a country that supports free speech. But it's what we as Highland Parkers believe in. It's what we expect from people who are living here and visiting here and studying here. So I think that's important to note. I got you, but first Barissa, then Yumi.
Thank you. So thank you, Councilmember Littler and the mayor and everyone for bringing this up. I think this is incredible that we're going to be a leader in our community and show just everyone that hate really has no home here and sending a strong message. I also, you know, in seeing the last year or so, going to the Cook County Anti-Semitism Task Force meetings that Highland Park has been a part of, just the amount of crimes that are happening every day, and it's troublesome, and I just cannot believe we live in a world that we have to, you know, deal with this every day. So I am proud to stand with all the fellow council members and City of Highland Park in supporting this, and thank you for bringing all this up. So.
And you raise a good point. I mean, if there is a hate crime, of course action will be taken, no question. Yumi?
Thank you. I also want to thank Councilmember Littler for her passionate advocacy on this, around this issue, and long, hard work on this. And I want to thank the mayor and Annette for working so collaboratively on this. I think that means, that in itself means a lot to council as a whole, that you achieved this through really fruitful dialogue that was also a model. And so it means a lot to council as it does to the city, I think. I want to share that I am, well, you all know, I'm Japanese American, woman of color, and I am a Jew. Before I was called Yumi Ross, I was and still am Yumi Shulowitz, great-granddaughter of Israel Shulowitz, and a proud descendant of accomplished Jews that came to this country and built lives and careers here. And I personally want to add that my father was in, Stefan Schulitz was in the US at the time of the Holocaust, so out of danger, but it affected him incredibly deeply his entire life, and as his daughter, I was acutely aware of that his entire life. I also greatly appreciate that HRAG will take up the discussion around discrimination on all fronts. I want to add, not that anyone forgot, Asian and Black discrimination as well. And my feeling about addressing anti-Semitism is, why wouldn't we? Why not? There has been anti-Semitism for thousands of years at every juncture in history, unbelievably at every juncture in history, and I'm proud to support this too.
Great, thank you. Andres?
Yeah, just I wanted to, echo a point you made, Mayor, about, free speech and how uncomfortable and difficult that can be to abide by, but it is what it is. But that this really is about us taking action on the things that we can have control over, jurisdiction and accountability, right? Our staff, elected officials, also holding our suppliers to some standards in terms of what we expect of them. So I think that's a really nice distinction as how we navigate sort of the paradoxes here.
Sure.
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 Okay, sorry to
Go ahead.
bring it up again. I'm the liaison for HRAG, and they are always looking for more fleshy and important things to really come up with, and I think they will be very open to this, and it's a wonderful segue into really living this and taking it to the next step. So I'm really grateful for that suggestion, and I also think it's a way, it's not about teeth, but it's a way of also living it in our community by example.
Yep.
So it's been a wonderful thing, and it has been a good collaboration. I'm really grateful to all of you
You bet.
for the work we've done.
Great, thank you. So are people comfortable with taking a vote this evening at the city council meeting? Yes.
Can I just say that I appreciate, and I don't mean to be so, well, maybe I do mean to be kumbaya, but I appreciate everything that every one of you said. I thought just really wonderful comments, and
And
yeah.
you as well. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so see you on the dais as far as this is concerned. Great, thank you. All right, our next item was originally supposed to be on our agenda about a month ago, and we had extended policy discussions on other topics and time constraints. So now we're going to talk about outdoor dining program policy review. Thank you. Thank you, Corey Cohen.
Good evening, Corey Cohen, Business Development Specialist. Tonight, we're going to go over the outdoor dining program policy and particularly the use of parking spaces. Before I get into the background of our outdoor dining program, I just want to remind us of the policy considerations that are for your review tonight. First, we'll be talking about the program dates of using outdoor dining spaces. Currently, we have a provision that allows it to go on from April 1st to December 1st. We have a staff recommendation to revise those dates from those dates to June 1st to October 1st. And the second policy consideration is to amend the fee for the use of outdoor dining spaces or use of parking spaces. Currently, it's set at $150. We'd like to increase it to $500. So Highland Park was quite adaptive and reactive during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was very forward-thinking in making some adaptations to its outdoor dining plan. It included using the public right-of-way, like sidewalks, streets, on-street parking, dining, and music. As the coronavirus changed, so did consumer expectations. And in August of 2022, the city made some code amendments to allow outdoor dining permits to extend into parking spaces during normal business hours without the explicit written consent of neighboring businesses. Notification was still used as well. Now, to date, there are 24 outdoor dining permits that have been issued at the city. A majority of those are in the public right-of-way, as well as some private outdoor dining permits. For public outdoor dining permits, there is a fee associated with it of $75. For outdoor dining, it is merely for our data tracking purposes. There are 74 restaurants in Highland Park, but only 8 spaces are used for outdoor dining, even though we have 74 restaurant licenses. 2 of which are in the CBD, that would be Central Business District, that's Norton's, and 6 of which are in Ravinia, and that's Yana's Speakeasy and Steep Ravine. Now this year, there has been a concerted effort, as well as last year, to purchase water barricades and covers for decor purposes for enhanced safety mitigation as people are dining outside. One thing that the city manager's office, as well as cross-departmentally, we take in account is making sure this process is streamlined. On average, an application, once we receive all the materials, including insurance, a site plan, etc., we try to process that within 3 to 4 days. In addition to our general outdoor dining, the city's made some significant investment into outdoor dining infrastructure. This includes 3 new bump outs that are on 2nd Street, part of the 2nd Street infrastructure project, as well as new furniture in Port Clinton Square for public use. Now, from a parameter standpoint, there is a maximum request of 3 parking spaces that a business can request. Now, there are some certain conditions, including not blocking signage for your neighbors, making sure you're meeting that 5 feet accessibility requirement, public safety measures that businesses need to take into account when they're looking at the use of parking spaces. Now, one thing that the city has taken as a very necessary precaution is to provide those water barricades at no cost to those businesses. The annual fee for these parking spaces, and we will revisit this point, is $150. These are the 3 examples in the city in which businesses are utilizing outdoor dining spaces: Norton's, which is in downtown Highland Park, as well as Yana's Speakeasy and Steep Ravine in Ravinia Business District. One thing to note about the difference between some of these parking spaces is Yana's Speakeasy, even though it's 3 parking spaces, it might appear larger due to how the parking spaces are positioned. So these are diagonal, while as Norton's are parallel parking. One thing that's really important as we assess our outdoor dining program is making sure we're getting the business feedback. And this is not just done through a single data point, but through anecdotal conversations that we have with business owners throughout the outdoor dining season and throughout the year. Now, we did take some quantitative data by surveying 60 business owners. We got a wide-ranging results, mixed feedback across the board. One thing I did want to note, though, is that parking availability in the business districts differ. So within the Central Business District, many business owners found it a little bit more challenging for their patrons to find parking, while in Ravinia, they found it slightly easier to find it. Now, back to the policy recommendations. The first policy recommendation that I'd like to review this evening is amending our current dates. Currently, the dates are from April 1st to December 1st. Based on staff recommendation, we recommend June 1st to October 1st, and this is for a variety of reasons. One, we looked at the optimal weather window in Highland Park and in Chicago. As many of you know, living here for a long time, Chicago weather can be a little bit unpredictable, particularly in the spring months of April and May. So staff did some research based on a variety of years from 2021 to 2025, and we found that about 6 days on average saw a high of 65 degrees or higher in April. In May, we saw an average of 16 days a month, and then in June, it's pretty easy to infer that you're going to see 28 days an average. So one thing I wanted to note regarding this is these are high temperatures. So this isn't just the average temperature during the day. So I like to think of these as lunch and dinner in a way. So that top bar is lunch, the bottom bar is dinner. So only 2 days in April was a night out, at dinner was at above 65 degrees, 5 days in May, 16 days in June. The second policy recommendation is amending the fee. So currently, we had the fee set at $150. The reason it was set at this particular price, at this fee, was because we were coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to be business friendly as restaurants were navigating the consumer expectations have changed and obviously recovering from potentially lost revenue. Now, with looking at our peer communities, Highwood has a limit of 3 parking spaces maximum. They have a $500 fee. Elmhurst is a $2,500 fee with a maximum of 2 parking spaces. Downers Grove does it by per square foot, so $1.75 per square foot, which comes out to a pretty substantial price. Park Ridge is $5.62 per square foot, or averaging about $900 per parking space. And Evanston is a $300 annual permit with $3 per square foot of space used. So that's like a per square footage and plus a $300 fee. So what we want to do is see what is the opportunity cost for a use of a parking space. Essentially, what is the revenue loss for the city when we give that space for dining? So we took a $3 parking fee, that's the daily rate, and we took it on the estimated 109 days of paid days. So that's 327. That's per parking space. And now those businesses can apply for up to 3 spaces. So we times that number by 3, and we came to that total of $981. Now, if we amend the fee to $500, we're still giving the businesses a discount based on the opportunity cost. The city could collect revenue of $981. So if you look at it in that perspective, that's where we came to a recommendation where it was a balance between giving the business, ideally a fee that was competitive and not revenue loss, but also an opportunity for the city to adjust their fee to a reasonable level.
Can I add one more thing, Corey? Sorry. Another consideration, if you go back one, another consideration for us for the 500 annually. We want businesses that are going to succeed, restaurants that are going to succeed, to utilize these spaces to expand their offerings. We want them to be busy. But we also want there to be there should be some barrier to getting parking spaces, because we know that there is an expectation from our consumers in the area, as well as our business owners, as our survey has said, that on-street parking is available to their consumers. So to be able to take up those spaces for dining, we want to know that you feel confident you're going to make back the amount of the permit and then some, so that you have skin in the game to take over those spaces and to lease those spaces.
And if I could, I just wanted to add one other thing, just on the previous slide, before you did a great job overall. So when we took a look at, this is good statistics here, just for consideration, but the other aspect is really the qualitative and the feedback that we hear from the public when we have outdoor dining that's in the street that is not being used. That's when we'll generally hear from the public to be like, why are you allowing this business to set up and use public parking and no one is using it, more than 75% of the time or so forth. So that's one aspect. The other important aspect is this is just relating to parking spaces. So businesses can still apply for consideration if the weather's nice to set up on the sidewalk. But again, we're looking at use of parking spaces specifically.
Okay, thanks. John?
Thanks, Corey. Really helpful. A couple of questions just that I want to digest and think through a little bit. On the parking piece, I appreciate the opportunity cost analysis, but the 3 restaurants that we're talking about, aren't there free parking outside those restaurants?
They are, if you don't mind me,
Yeah.
They are, but we do charge daily rates for other parking spaces in town. So we were
Okay, so
comparing it
that's
that way.
in concept,
Correct.
potential other locations
So if you're
where
a
we would
commuter-
sacrifice revenues.
Correct, and
Okay.
it's important for us to note, we set an estimated 109 dates, because Corey and I did the math for the 4 months and subtracted Sundays, so we took into account, if I was a commuter, for example, or if I'm a business employee who has to buy an employee permit somewhere, how much am I paying over the course of that time?
Okay, got it. Okay. The weather, I recognize what I'm about to say is totally subjective. 65 degrees in August feels a lot different than 65 degrees in May when we've all been cooped up for the winter. And I don't know where 65 degrees came from. Maybe it's just sort of like a general benchmark of where you feel like it might be comfortable to sit outside. But actually, when the data came back earlier today or yesterday with the table, it's like, oh man, this year was unseasonably cold. But typically, May actually is not so bad if we're using 65 degrees as the benchmark. So I don't know. It's a little bit more art than science, probably. And I also totally do appreciate the fact that unutilized space you get complaints about. So I'm not saying I have the golden answer, but it would be unfortunate, if we have a typical year where the spring is nice and people are looking to get outside, then we're not allowing them to do so. And then the other
Potentially, we could have a compromise of May 15th
Yeah, maybe so.
versus May 1st,
Yeah. But then one more thing, sorry, Matt.
No.
I love the concept of generating more revenues for the city, as you guys know.
I think we all do, John.
But my concern for the restaurants is that they're such low margin businesses to begin with that just penalizing them, like $350 to the restaurant, the negative impact of that is far greater than the positive impact to us as a city. Understanding that there's some other opportunity costs.
So you're talking about the fee?
Yeah, the fee.
Okay.
I know, and it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big dollar amount, but again, maybe there's other levers to pull if we're trying to find other ways for revenue generating that isn't as impactful to businesses that already are super low margin.
Does the sort of standard from other communities sway you at all?
No, that's helpful.
Mhm.
I don't know if we looked at the right data set, like
Highland seems like a
Highland's great, but other North Shore,
Evanston.
so the population demographics of Evanston are very different than us. I like let's think about potential businesses that are going to operate here if they're thinking about Highland Park versus Lake Forest, Winnetka, Glencoe, Deerfield.
Yeah.
Right.
Most don't even allow it.
Most don't
Okay.
allow it.
Most don't even allow it.
And New York has started to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just echo, most do not allow it on the North Shore, but we also looked at the places that do allow it that are all considered very vibrant downtown communities.
Okay.
So Downers Grove, Elmhurst, Evanston, et cetera, those are all very vibrant downtowns that allow the parking space use still.
Okay. Yeah, let me digest that because no, that data was really helpful, and the
Yeah.
fact that some of them are very
Really
expensive
high.
relative to us.
Yeah.
You're right. It does put it in perspective.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got Annette, then Tony, then Andres.
Okay, so, first of all, and part of me feels like saying what he said, but I did not speak with, John, and I have to say, first of all, thank you to staff. These numbers were really helpful, and I think you did a really good job. If there was one I would love to still see from it, would be Wilmette, because they're so vibrant, and, so numerically, that would be the only other one, but otherwise, this was really great. I'm glad John pointed out that we don't actually charge for the spaces that are being taken up. On the other hand, I do understand the opportunity counts. But having said that, I looked at this with those numbers at our community, and so it was more of a parochial point of view. And to me, in the same, and I'm not saying that we're not low for the $150 fee, and I do think it should be raised, but in the same year or season, to raise it threefold and to make the season smaller really bothers me. So I really felt like if we wanted to raise it this year to 300 and next year to 500, that would be less painful. So that
People could plan a little bit more.
Right, so I'm not saying I'm opposed to the 500 in theory, I just think it's too great of a jump in 1 year, and especially in the year when we're talking about perhaps cutting back on the calendar. Because I agree with John, I'm always cold. I mean, that's why, on a day like today, I'm prepared for tonight. Because I'm always cold. But I will tell you that come March or come April, when the sun is out, even for a little bit, if I can go outside and sit someplace, I don't care if I have a down jacket on. I'm so happy to be out in the fresh air. And I think our community, I don't know about y'all, but I think that that first time you go outside in the afternoon or the evening and you see your neighbors who you haven't seen in 3 months, you're like, oh, hi, you want to go outside and go over to wherever we go to sit outside and be together. And so in the same vein, I really don't want to chop the season that much, fully appreciating that perhaps next year I could deal with June 1 to October 1, but this year I would much rather see May 1 to November 1. I just want to do it in smaller increments. We have a lot of new restaurants. We have a lot of restaurants who, for the very reason we put in these low fees, were struggling so badly during COVID. I think the margins are so thin, I really want to do it incrementally. I don't necessarily disagree with anything that staff has recommended. I'm just not willing or ready to do it in one fell swoop.
Great.
So mine would be the $300 recommendation and May 1 to November 1. So cutting it slightly, preparing them for what may be coming.
Right.
And studying that and seeing, what the attendance is like, what the weather's like again, and determining if they say to us it's busy, I think that's great. That would be the best.
Right, right. I thought at one point we were talking about only restaurants that had lunch and dinner. Did we take that out, or?
Yeah, based on the last committee of the whole meeting, I followed up with everybody and shared the presentation and the staff report. The council was comfortable with all those recommendations. There was discussion about these two specific policy
Got
areas.
it.
That's why we just brought these back.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
so lunch
you.
and dinners, we'll move forward.
Okay, Tony?
Just very briefly, one of the things that I don't want to forget is that these parking spaces that are taken up may have an adverse impact on surrounding businesses.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I think the city should be charging reasonably for the use of that space. I understand the impact on the restaurants who do this, but other businesses can't conduct business outside. And so to some degree, that's an economic disadvantage. Some restaurants can't conduct business outside just in terms of where they're located or how they market themselves. And subjectively, I hear what you're saying about May, and I have that feeling myself, except that I have a birthday at the end of May. And I would tell you most years it's too cold to have a backyard barbecue or do anything like that at the end of May. And the perception of when we get to go outside is probably more consistent with June. But I would be comfortable with what Councilmember Littler suggested, sort of a smoothing idea, if that sounds familiar, and doing it incrementally over a couple of years and working into that. I have no problem with that.
So what fee?
$300 to start with,
Okay,
and starting with May 1st and see how that goes.
okay. Thank you. Andres?
Yeah, I'm in that direction too, and I just philosophically, why is that? I think that the benchmarking was very good. It might be missing a community or two, but Highwood, that's over here, and if they're charging 500, I feel like, we're in that same ecosystem. And philosophically, I like what staff did in terms of looking at the opportunity cost. And I think in economics, you always want to measure equilibrium, what has been gained and what has been lost. And I think the other philosophy that we have as a city is sort of shared skin in the game, and everybody has to kind of do their costs, and because there's consequences on other businesses or et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in favor of 500, but sort of as a two-step thing, I would suggest that we actually say 500 with a 2-year evolution toward it.
So 300 and then 500?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
and the other, the one thing I do, and I would say May 1, I think April, I think it's worth testing whether April is indeed too cold, and I think that's a reasonable thing. I think June 1 is way too drastic, and I think why not say May 1 and see?
Yeah.
Right? See how the businesses feel, just really before we kind of overcorrect in one direction. I am concerned about the empty spaces. All of us are up and around a lot. We bike, we walk, and we're supportive of this. But then, sometimes you walk and it's a beautiful day, and you go, how come no one's here?
Right.
Because there is a trade-off, right? Like we're saying, if people are going to dine outside and the businesses are prospering or doing well, great, at the expense of losing parking spaces, but we feel there's a good trade-off. But if consistently it's kind of too empty, then we have a problem. Now, how do we address that? Because in an ideal world, and I'm not suggesting we use staff time to do this, but in an ideal world, you would have a way of monitoring how empty they are at lunch and dinner. So I don't know, there's a creative way or even a spot check or something. Spot checks are tricky, right? Because weather and holidays and vacations and stuff, it might have been just a bad business day for everybody. So we have to be careful, but I think we have a responsibility to see what the supply and demand is, and we might be creating too much supply and not enough demand. And if that's the case, then we're
Then we
not
start-
achieving our
Right,
goal.
We roll back. Yeah, Marissa?
I would say I'm fine with the 500 fee, but the 300 and then 500 is fine with me, especially after looking at the surrounding neighborhoods.
Okay.
And also, in terms of the months, I'm fine with May 1st, but I would also, I think going into November 1st too, because it's always usually warm in October. I remember Halloween last year was very warm.
So would you end on November 1st?
I would say November 1st, yeah. That's
Okay.
what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Yeah, I kind of assumed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then in terms of just other businesses, I know for this season, there was one restaurant in downtown Highland Park that put out, took 3 parking spots, and the business next door was like very upset, and they had to take away their outdoor dining, which is, I don't think that was, they should have done that, but I know these other businesses could hurt too in terms of losing the 3 spots, so. I mean, I definitely think we're just looking also at these restaurants to see how busy they really are, but I think, we continue to monitor that somehow. And I know same with, there's one in Ravinia that I've heard that there's the 3 parking spots taken in front, and usually, people have been complaining about that restaurant as well. That's,
Right.
but.
Well, one question that I had is, percentage of total available parking on the block, but it sounds like in Ravinia, people feel like there are other options, so it maybe was only just a couple of people who were really having a beef with that one restaurant.
That's what we found through our surveys, and not
That was
just
helpful.
surveying and not just anecdotally. I mean, Jamie and Corey are walking our business districts on a regular basis, so they are
Thank
interacting
you.
with our business.
I run into
owners.
them all the time.
Yes, they are seen often, so people are
Great.
not afraid to share.
I can. Wonderful. All right, Yumi?
Last one here.
Sure.
I support what I'm hearing here. I support the smoothing out. Tony used that expression. I like that term, smoothing it out. To do it, not have the sticker shock of all at once, do 300 and achieve 500 at I guess next year. And also the time frame we just talked about, I support that too. That would be, what is that, May through November 1st, right? And, but I want to mention that, first, 2 things. One is, we're using Placer AI, right, to figure out, getting information about where people are at any given time, and there's a lot of data to be mined there. And the other piece that I wanted to mention is having talked with a co-owner of one of the, I won't name names, but one of the restaurants on Roger Williams at Food Truck Thursday just very recently. It was on the agenda and whatnot. I was curious about their take on it, and they said that it wasn't so much that dollar amount, but the physical environment, the barriers, for example, that are pretty ugly, green covered. The green's better than no cover. I'll say that much.
Right.
But that there's so many examples around the country, all around us, that do nicer jobs with that. And then I just anecdotally as well, somebody stopped me literally in the aisle of Target last night, and brought this up out of nowhere, that are you doing anything about those, they had a term for it, and maybe there's a term, the sweat covered, jersey covered barriers, and because they thought they're hideous, and so many other towns and cities do nicer jobs with them. And I told that person, who happens to be they said they don't mind, that a relative of former official Barney Ruttenberg, they said use their name, but that I'm hoping, that I'd already put it in my notes when I saw that city is looking at more attractive ones, that I was going to ask, when you are looking at those, can you give several options for the city council to look at? I'd be interested in seeing them. But
the
that,
barriers?
the barriers, yeah, because there are many more attractive options than that. And
These were, I think, rather quickly obtained
yes. And I understand.
In an effort to protect the safety of the public. But I think we've been talking for several years about how do we move forward with this. So,
I thought it was interesting just to hear from, like I said, a co-owner of a restaurant who said that the fee wasn't the issue for them. It was the aesthetic of.
Right.
Can I ask her a question on that?
Actually, Andres had his hand up. Is
Sorry,
that okay?
no
Okay.
Well, I just want to piggyback on that. I also share the same concern, and I know we all have. But the point that we've kind of been thinking about it for a few years, I would recommend that we actually make it a priority to address. Because for all the investment we've done in the hardscape and the landscape and the lightscape and everything, and then to have these barriers be so unattractive, it's like someone didn't pay attention to the
It just
drapes.
costs money is all.
Well, I'm right. Of course.
And we all like it, a
Generates money too.
aesthetic,
I mean,
right,
better-
but to the point, we had a couple of situations where it was like, cars are driving into restaurants, we need something immediately, but I think we all are on the same page of an improved aesthetic, but again, it's just, we gotta fit it into the budget.
Well, if I just say, instead of seeing it as an expense, see it as a investment, a return on investment. Because I think we've spent so much invested to attract visitors and make a destination and to make an attractive place for residents that we haven't quite finished the job.
Right, we're all singing from the same page, absolutely. I think
So
it was
let's make it a
2 years
priority.
ago, 3 years ago, that I sent you beautiful brass planters that, and all of that stuff, people, absolutely. So I think the team hears you.
The covers was the most cost efficient to move forward with, so we purchased more covers. I mean, again, this was done during COVID, was when we moved, like, over a weekend, we put together a whole plan in place.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the choice at that time and the
But
other
now we're
question,
moving
but
forward.
now
Yeah.
Correct,
it's time.
correct.
It's over.
Absolutely.
But I guess I will just say, like, there isn't anything currently planned in the budget just because of the expense and other priorities. So we can
Yeah.
talk about that. The other thing that we have found, and Public Works has done a significant amount of research, even these decorative planters require concrete posts into the pavement. And so, they're.
Those ones in France. where they
Correct.
Screw them in and take them out.
Well,
So-
but that's not practical with our, weather, climate. So we've definitely looked at it. We can talk about it, at another.
Well, we can add it to the capital improvement plan, and we can say this is an
Yeah.
investment. We've done all this other beautification, and $11 million on Second Street, so let's
Exactly.
finish the job and have these things.
And if,
Part of the
a few
other piece-
options, please. if-
Part of the other piece too, though, is the flexibility of being able to move them. And so there's a challenge if you have permanent things placed, that's it. So, and when you're having other events or whatever and you need to move them around, these are more easily
So
moved.
lots of other cities are doing more attractive options, and they certainly have the same issues of moving it as
Right,
well.
right.
So let's take a look.
We have taken a look, and I guess I'll just share with you, and I'm not saying that it's not gonna happen, I'm just sharing with you our preliminary research. Right now, what we found with other communities is if there is a vehicle that drives into what they have established, it is going to crash into anyone seated in that area. Other communities are not taking a look at those safety protocols that we are prioritizing. And so we are looking at crash-rated barriers, and we've seen it. Madam Zuzu's, two people
Yeah,
twice
yeah.
that had drove in there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're finding. Other communities, we're all taking a look. We drive through and we're like, oh, those are beautiful, but they're not going to stop a vehicle from crashing into that, whether it's by accident or intentional.
So it's already in the packet. You said we're looking at more attractive.
We are,
So,
yeah, and we'll
yeah.
100% bring it forward. I just want to share with you, based on preliminary research, that's what we have found.
And recognize that it may be something where it gets phased in. You know, you might say, we want the priority to be this neighborhood, and we will get there in 5 or 10 years, whatever the case may be, but in the meantime, keeping people safe. John and then Tony.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Councilmember Ross, in the anecdotal conversation you had, did that person feel like it was
The business owner?
the business owner, that it was a barrier to demand because people don't wanna?
They felt it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Tony?
So I can't let this opportunity pass without noting that the placement of barriers is a city responsibility, and these are significant, often concrete, to be effective. But I have a problem with the city, quote, investing in private business, and the beautification of how that business appears in the public, in my opinion, is not our responsibility. And if business owners and restaurant owners and operators want it to look more attractive, they should make it more attractive. We are providing them the opportunity to expand their business beyond their lease. Our responsibility is to provide a safe place for them to do that. Beyond that, it is my opinion that they should be paying a significant part of that appearance.
Thank you. Annette?
I think that's a great idea, and frankly, I think that works right into the incentive thing, that, you know, if they wanna put up half the money for it, and that's a way to improve their business, and maybe they have a larger space, maybe they have a safer space, but it's more attractive. I love that idea, and we could give a part of our incentive budget towards something like a streetery concept, but a safe one that we would have to approve, because to your point, I'm not sure what other towns do. As unattractive as these are, I have to say, I love the idea that from a safety perspective, we did that first. And so those are more expensive. I know these things, they're ugly, but they were expensive.
Yeah.
But they're safer.
I appreciate what you're saying, but again, using some of the money that is obtained through the boutique incentive plan, you're just having the city pay for something I've just said I don't think the city ought to pay for.
I'm just saying half. That's all I meant.
Either way.
Yeah.
Marissa? And then I'll call on you.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a great idea, and that's also something in the future. Same with, I mean, and I've also heard, the planters have been suggested of looking, and I don't know if that's something that, maybe not the city, but if it's near, restaurants, or they could also use that as well, as just beautifying their space to make it, nicer for diners, if that is a concern. But I mean, going out to restaurants and looking at those barricades, if I'm with my family, I feel safe in case a car were to come.
Right.
So, and to me, that doesn't bother.
Could SSA dollars be used for these?
What kind of dollars? I'm sorry.
SSA? Or is that more for
Yeah, it's
promoting?
more for special events.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yumi?
Oh, I was just going to say that, that clearly our city manager has made the case that these have to be substantial barriers, so the city's already invested in barriers, so we're already doing something. So I would push back on the idea that it's up to the property owner to, I mean, it can be some kind of collaboration, but we're already invested in this protection of the pedestrian, the people sitting there.
Right.
So, I mean, it's already an investment by the city. I'm saying it's not.
Public safety investment.
It's not completely on the store, the retail owner.
The beautification margin is where I hear Councilmember Bloomberg going, that we already have invested in the public safety barriers
Yeah.
as much as they're looking like big green blobs, but,
Yeah.
to bring them up to a different aesthetic standard
I
is
just
gonna
think
be
it's-
a multiple.
I
It's
think
not
it's-
gonna be a cheap thing.
But it should be certainly a goal of ours, and one that I hope, as Councilmember Tapia just mentioned, I hope we can prioritize that, because I'm hearing from, restaurant owners, from just community members, that they see it's ugly, it's a detriment to business, and they want it to look nicer. So that's
Understand their priority, absolutely. I'm just going to share a common refrain that's going to become my mantra between now and November, and that is, it all costs money. We don't have it endlessly. We need to be efficient with our resources and with our staff, and I appreciate that we like things to look nice. I think that's sort of the bottom line, and it's all a balance. You have to choose. Are you going to help the library, or are you going to help businesses? You know, it's at a certain point, you can't keep raising taxes to cover everything. And so being planful, I know you all are. I know you want to be responsible with tax dollars. And it's clearly something that the city's continuing to look into as we move forward with capital improvements and investing in the vibrancy of our community.
Oh, I'm glad to have the conversation.
Always good, yeah. Don't want to be the blueberry.
Can you maybe just summarize just to make sure we're on the same page?
May 1st to November 1st. And the fees will be $300 in the coming year, followed by $500 the year after. Are people okay with that?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Perfect.
thanks everybody for a great conversation, and food is coming in 5 minutes, so grab dinner in a moment.
Do we have closed session?
We do not have closed session as far as I could tell. Do we, Bart? We do not. Okay, so a motion to adjourn committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.